and welcome back to my studio. In today's video, we have lesson 8 of our learning to read sheet music and how to play piano series. If you are following along in the book that I am teaching this with, we will be on pages 50 to 63. This is a bigger chunk because we're getting kind of towards the end of our lessons and there's not as much new stuff that we are introducing. First thing we're going to go over is what is called G position. So far in this book we have learned C position, which is where both of our hands start on C and end on G. So for left hand that would be finger 5 on C, for right hand that would be finger 1 on C. Obviously it would be different C's, but that is your C position. For G position it's basically the same thing, but you're just going to move to where you'll start on G and end on D. So there's one finger for each note. I do also want to review melodic and harmonic intervals because we are going to be going over those in the G position. So remember, intervals are just the space between two notes. So for example, if I have two notes right next to each other on the piano, that is a second. If I go one more step from that where I'm skipping a note in between, that's a third. I went over all of the intervals in another lesson. You can go back and watch that if you would like. Remember, a melodic interval is when we play the notes separately, one right after another. A harmonic interval is when we play them together as a chord. The next thing we're learning is sharps. So a sharp just looks like a hashtag sign basically, and it tells us to play that note a half step higher than written. So for example, if I have F sharp, instead of playing the white key F, I'm going to play the black key, which is a half step up from F. Now there are some cases where you don't have a black key right next to that note. For example, if you have E sharp, I would just go to the very closest note up, which is to the right, remember? So I would actually just be playing F, but that still counts as E sharp because there's no black key in between there. For a sharp, you do not play the note twice. You're only gonna play one note. You're just playing that black key. That sharp sign and your note counts as one note. It's not two different notes. We also have in this section of the book some finger exercises, and you can do these if you like. They're on page 57. These are just practicing finger independence and being equally strong in all of your fingers, which can be really difficult. Usually your thumb is very strong. You're gonna be able to hit keys really hard with that because it's very easy to put your weight into your thumb. Whereas with your pinky and usually these three fingers are going to be the harder ones to use. Sometimes it feels very funny playing with these fingers. So these exercises on this page will help with that if that's something you're really struggling with. Even if it's something you don't struggle with, I definitely do recommend still going through these anyways because they can be really helpful. And especially as you continue to advance, finger exercises are really important to include in your practicing routine. We are learning G major chords, and we've already gone over C major chords, and we've also gone over the names for them. So like the I and the IV and the V7, which are the 1, the 4, the 5, 7. We've gone over all of those, and if you want to go back and watch that video if you haven't already, I will have it linked. But now we are going on to G major. It's the same idea with the 1 and the 5, 7, which are the ones you will see on these pages in the book. So our 1 chord for G major is just G, B, D. And our 5, 7 chord for G major is a little bit different because we do have a sharp in G major. If you are learning scales, you will notice that certain scales have certain sharps or flats. So in the G scale, we do have F sharp, which means we're gonna have that in our chords. All you need to know though is that the G major 5, 7 chord is F sharp on the bottom and then C and D. Also, just a quick review on blocked versus broken chords. Remember, a blocked chord is when we are playing them together, all the notes at the same time. A broken chord is when we are playing the same notes that are in a chord, but at separate times, so one after another rather than all together. The last thing that we do have in these pages that I want to go over is pedal marking. So on page 61, our song does have a pedal marking, and this means to hold our damper pedal down as long as that marking goes on. So the damper pedal is your pedal all the way on the right. It's going to hold the sound of your notes. So even once you let your hand up and stop playing a note, if you're holding that pedal down, it will hold out the sound of that note. I do have a video that goes over all the techniques, all my tips on how to pedal properly, because a lot of people actually don't teach how to pedal. They just teach you what it is and that you need to hold the pedal down, but there is a certain way to do it that's going to create a much better sound. So I do highly recommend you go check out that video. This is going to be really helpful, especially as you get into more advanced songs that have more pedal markings in them. This is going to be a really good skill to know how to do properly. I hope you have found this lesson helpful. I hope you've learned something. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed this, because that really helps the channel, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon.